As promised, I'm doing a review of our first full year of solar use. I've got data from before we had solar and after we had solar. And as a bonus, I've got data from before we owned the house so we can compare my family to the previous owners of the house to make sure that we're not like especially good at savings or especially careless with electricity. And that'll give us a good baseline. Okay, our solar setup, to do a brief review. We have 7 330 watt panels. We have a little under 2,500 watts. That's about half of our usage, so we're covering about 50%. That was the target. We got a 5,000 watt inverter instead of a 2,500 watt inverter because I suspected the system was going to work, and the two 2,500 watts systems are, it costs more to begin with, so you get a discount by buying a bigger inverter. And there's wiring and all that if you buy two inverters, and I didn't really trust having two inverters, so I gambled a little bit and I put in the 5,000 watt inverter. Here is a graph of our setup of our data, and you can see the brown is the previous owners and the blue is our first full year in the house, and then the yellow, I know I'm covering this up, the yellow is the first full year of solar in our house. And I mean, just a quick look at this, and you can see that here's the brown. This is the previous owner. This is us before the solar, and this is us after the solar. And just consistently, 50% roughly or better. We were a bit stingier than the previous owners, and as you can see, consistently. But even then, even from our thrifty positions, we still managed to save roughly 50% across the board. You may ask why the brown dips right here. The previous owners would take long vacations and turn the power off the house. Here, that's going to take a little bit of explaining. We took a vacation and we turned the power off. That's the blue before we bought the solar. And so basically for 10 days out of the month, there was zero consumption. We just turned the power all the way off. Okay, let's look at the data behind this. As you can see here, 209 versus 540. So this is our first full year in the house of our home ownership, and this is the first year of solar, and so less than half. We can go all the way across here. Let's look at the numbers. Now this is December of the year before, so this is December, January, February, etc. So here we save 61%, 67%, 60%. All the way across there. And if we had not switched off the power on our vacation before we installed the solar, we'd have a better comparison, but that didn't happen. So if we had a better comparison, this number up here, this is our actual findings, is 47.5% savings. This would be right on target at 50%. Okay, some lessons I learned from installing solar. Ensure the roof mount or the roof under your solar panels is good for at least the life of the panels, the 20, 25 years. I have cement tile up there, but one thing, I had a skylight, and the skylight wasn't good, and that required some repair. That's not fun. You don't want to do that. The roof mounting is the hardest part of installing solar. Make sure that each one of your holes that you put in the roof to mount the the bolts or whatever you're putting in your roof, make sure each one of them is sealed carefully. I had 3 that were not. They dripped down into the into a carport storage like area, and okay, so there was no problem, but still going back up there and resealing them, that's not fun. You don't want to do that. Make sure your panels have enough angle so that the rain's going to wash them clean. I've never washed these panels, so they've been up there, and we never wash them in all the time they've been up there, but they have enough angle. It cleans the dust off when they rain. And keep your wiring organized and labeled while you're doing the job, because, well, if you're like me and you plan on expanding the system, then you don't want to have to go back and rediscover what you did several years later. Or if you have an issue, hailstones break a panel or something, you need to replace it. You don't want to go up there fussing around trying to figure it out. So make sure your wires are organized and labeled. Now, some drawbacks of solar. You may be surprised to see this, because I'm really a big proponent of solar, but there are some issues with solar, and the first one I found is psychological. As soon as you install solar, people think the electricity is free. My family was changing the thermostat setting to whatever by several degrees, 5 degrees, 6 degrees, 7 degrees. They didn't get the idea that the electricity is not free, and wasting it's a bad idea anyway. So you have to make sure that people understand that the electricity is not free. In fact, what it is it's cheaper electricity and you've prepaid for it. So you definitely want to make sure you get your most usage out of it. And the other thing is it's kind of boring. After it's installed, the thrill is gone. You play with the controls for a while. You know, you do this, you do that. You track your usage every month. But, you know, from a maintenance standpoint, that's really wonderful. But from a nerd standpoint, well, you know, the thrill is gone. The toy has lost its shine. Yeah, so that's it. Overall, I would recommend solar if you're thinking about doing it. You can see our savings are very real, and the system's paying for itself. Our targeted payback is about 4 years, which isn't too terrible. So yeah, overall, I'd say it's a good thing. Okay, well, I hope you found this useful and interesting in your home solar projects.